Sweet, man. Well, look, thanks for taking the time to jam with me today. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, me too. Me even more than you, I'd say.
I hear you had you said the other day you had a good time in Riga and some good conversations with our mutual friend Gigi.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I told him the other day that to watch out for this one because this one's especially for him.
Good. Well, I'm sure we're gonna get into the really deep rabbit hole aspects of this, but you are kind of known for making sense, bringing clarity to kind of the environmental, the energy discussion around Bitcoin. So, and I think why that's important. Obviously, is because there's a lot of misconceptions. This is a source of a lot of resistance to people that otherwise might be interested in Bitcoin. I had a conversation with a friend a couple of months ago, and very forward-thinking guy, very interested in quote unquote crypto, but even interested in Bitcoin. But he was expressing grave concerns about the energy usage, and the rebuttal is often, well, did you know that it's a majority renewable clean energy, and then you get into conversations about comparing the energy usage or the energy devoted to the Bitcoin network versus other monetary media. And then, you could go even deeper and say, well, look at all the different energy inefficiency caused by a fiat money system, like something like, let's say, the US military, right? That's commonly cited as one of the big, energy consumers slash polluters in the world. And how much would that be restricted if we were on a different monetary standard? Yada, yada, yada. So I think this is an issue that's probably going to become more is going to pop up more in the mainstream media over the next little while. So why don't you give me your kind of spiel and bring some sense to this issue for everyone?
So this is rapid fire, right?
Well,
So
we'll get into rapid fire at the end, but yeah.
okay, so effectively, the talk I gave in Riga was titled "Yellow Rock Bad, Orange Coin Good." So it was a 20-minute talk, and I spent maybe 3 minutes speaking about the environmental impact of Bitcoin. So here's the long and short of it.
Sure.
It doesn't matter like how much energy use, as long as the energy is clean. Energy use isn't a bad thing. So one of my talking points, one of my slides was energy good, emissions bad.
Right.
So the thing that has allowed civilization to prosper really is the discovery of better, larger energy sources. So one could argue that civilization kicked off with the discovery of fire, and we moved from fire to timber to coal to steam, solar, nuclear, wind, all of that good stuff. And as we unlock more power and have abundance in power and green power, uh, that that's not a bad thing. The more energy, the better, as long as we can harness it cleanly and safely.
Right. And do you talk much about, because I think a lot of people who express this criticism, they fail to realize the degree to which this kind of insatiable hunt for energy that Bitcoin is igniting will lead to more energy efficiency, more use of sustainable energy resources, more subsidy, effectively subsidizing green energy and renewable energy. Do you talk about that much?
I talk about it in the context of what pension funds and the like can do to get skin in the game in Bitcoin. So here's what I mean. So a nuclear power plant, it's not cheap to construct, but pension funds typically have a lot of equity, and what they require out of an investment is a consistent cash flow. It's called asset liability matching. So pension funds have to, pay out pensioners sort of, a fixed amount consistently every month. So they love assets that match those liabilities. And what better asset to get your skin in the Bitcoin game is selling picks and shovels to the miners in the form of 30-year concessions over couple of gigawatts of power at a particular rate.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think Bitcoin mining is going to push a lot of investment in energy in general. And as a rule of thumb, and what we're seeing these days as investment increases and technology improves, the majority of new generation coming online is renewable.
Right. And you just see this accelerating, right?
If the pension funds know what's good for them, I reckon it's a much lower risk play than holding bonds. So someone will eventually figure it out, and you'll see a lot of big money going into just energy investment to win over the business of mining companies.
Right.
Sell them energy at a good rate in a good legal jurisdiction, good regulatory jurisdiction. Yeah, I definitely see an energy arms race.
That to me seems like such a big deal, and it's a lot is missed about Bitcoin in the mainstream media, but just the impact that this thing is going to have on the energy efficiency, the types of energy used, the energy market in general. I've heard you've said that Bitcoin is the monetization of energy, um, and that's an interesting concept. Maybe you can flesh that one out a little bit.
So this is where we come back to the spirit, the soul, and religion,
Let's do it.
and cosmic kind of stuff. And well, religion. A lot of people recoil at the term religion. So
Hmm.
so I always go to a neutral source, and I just go to the dictionary. And in the dictionary, all that religion simply mean is a set of beliefs and rituals, and that is the definition of religion. So I have my Bitcoin beliefs and I have my Bitcoin rituals. But going back to the monetization of energy, everything in the world, sorry, not world, everything in the universe and multiverses, if they do exist, is simply made of energy. Mass energy, all interchangeable. Can't create energy or destroy it. Uh, all energy that was in existence was distributed amongst the universe. Uh, at inception, at the Big Bang, and just like Bitcoin, energy is finite but infinitely divisible. Now, a lot of people say only two things, like scarce is time and Bitcoin. I don't adhere to that. Time is infinite, so the only truly scarce asset in the universe is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is simply monetized energy. In that, to produce a Bitcoin, you have to transform energy through an ASIC into Bitcoin.
Right.
So we are all Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just simply the digital representation of this, stored monetized energy.
And what happens if in a future time we find far more, like orders of magnitude, revolutionary ways of accessing more energy more inexpensively? And if that's applied to the Bitcoin network, what impact does that have?
Well, I'd say that's sort of heading towards of a more like Star Trek utopian, era of abundance kind of thing. But look, energy, even very cheap energy, like hydro, always needs a huge upfront capital investment. So
Hmm.
free electricity, I don't think it can thermodynamically be a concept. I think there's always got to be a cost to electricity, uh, but costs will tend exponentially down, and energy usage will tend exponentially up.
Right.
I think an enormous amount of energy is gonna be used to keep the Bitcoin running in what I call the hereafter, which is a post type of Bitcoinized world. So the hereafter is a very, very big concept on in my religious interpretation of Bitcoin.
What does it mean exactly?
So I've got a little tag, hashtag stack sats for salvation. So one of the best ways, you can save yourself and collect rewards for a good hereafter is simply stacking sats, and you'll be safe in the hereafter. Now the hereafter, there's a hell version and a heaven version, and it'll be very bold of me to try to make a prediction of which way it'll go. But I believe in the utopian vision, and that's the one I'll be fighting for.
Right. What do you think I've given some thought lately to how not only will, renewable energy, will there kind of be a boom in it because of, what Bitcoin brings to the table, but there seems to be a lot of waste energy all around us all the time, just inefficiencies in the use of energy. Do you see any ways in which, I know, upstream is kind of the most the one that's gotten the most attention lately for taking a quote unquote waste energy in flaring and using that toward mining Bitcoin. Do you see any other examples of that on the horizon?
Yeah, Steve's doing a great job now. I think there's enough waste gas in the world that if Steve had rigs taking all of that, natural gas, he'd be able to do like a 75% attack. Like there is a lot of waste, like wasted energy, like gigawatts worth, easily enough to power the Bitcoin network.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always new types of energy technology coming around. Stanford did a great proof of concept earlier in March, where they made hydrogen fuel with some seawater from the San Francisco Bay. So they've figured out new technologies where the the electrodes, instead of dissolving in a day, can last for a year or whatever it is. And any country that has a lot of sun and a lot of sea, uh, it's a great source of renewable energy. And because investments starting to become justifiable, I can see these little plants popping up everywhere. So we're still talking, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, but in the scheme of things, that's not really a very long time. Uh, but yeah, absolutely. I think it's a foregone conclusion about Bitcoin running on 100% renewables in 10 to 15 years. Like the business case, just the maths won't add up if you're using 5 or 6 cent per kilowatt hour power. You really need to get down to the 1 and 2 cent mark,
Mm-hmm.
and I really think that'll only be possible with renewables,
And do you see
especially hydro.
do you see a future where Bitcoin mining is highly decentralized in that, there's these kind of localized down to the perhaps even home where there's ways of capturing enough waste energy or even generating home-based energy to the point where people, the mining is so dispersed? Or do you see the kind of competition for cheap energy and the OpEx and all this kind of stuff actually having the reverse effect and just creating these kind of monoliths of energy efficiency, and they become the dominant miners?
All right, so the way I see, I made some very, very bold predictions. So earlier in January, when Bitcoin turned 10, I wrote an article. It was titled "Happy 20th Birthday, Bitcoin." So I tried to put myself 10 years in the future and predict how far along we'd
Interesting.
come. And one of my bets is thanks to things like lightning. See, the problem with mining is unless you've spent, you know, 20 or 30 grand on kit, you'll only be mining dust. So whatever you mine, you can barely even get it out of the system. But with things like lightning, I can definitely see layer two or layer three sort of lightning mining pools where you can get paid out at a sub Satoshi level, and people might elect every year 0.01% of their stash. They will dedicate it, to lightning mining as a way to secure their own wealth and make sure things aren't too decentralized. So if you've got millions and millions of people, even producing very very limited amount of hashes, but they can still collect their rewards to make it worth their while. Uh, I do see sort of five or six big pools emerging that take 80% of the hash rate, with the other 20% taken up by the stragglers. So a very a Pareto 80-20 kind of thing, which is very common in markets as competitive as Bitcoin mining.
Right.
I even posit that the Bitcoin mining ecosystem, when you look down the track 20 or 30 years, will be the first real life example of a near perfectly competitive market.
And so is that a trend toward, it doesn't sound like that much more effective decentralization than we have now in terms of mining? Or do you think it will be?
I I think it'll be effective enough in that there'll be probably five or six pools. So
Right.
like the biggest pool will probably take a 20% stake, and there'll probably be ways proving transparency. Like there'll have to be something. I try not to predict too far into the future,
Hmm.
but I definitely think lightning mining could hold some appeal for a lot of people uh, willing to mine at a loss to secure their Bitcoin.
What do you mean by lightning mining? Like, how would that work?
So for example, if I just have like $100 piece of kit and I'm mining, my daily pool rewards are probably 2 Satoshi. So if I want to pull that off the pool, I don't even have enough to make to pay the fee.
Right.
Whereas with Lightning, I could pull the 2 Satoshi out,
I
or I
see.
could even mine zero point 0.1 of a Satoshi.
Oh, I see what you mean. Just so it's just more economically viable to take the reward, basically, even if you can't
Basically,
generate much of it. But that's the point.
yeah.
You
So
generate such a small reward that it wouldn't make sense to take to make a transaction to receive it on chain, but with Lightning you can.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
that then starts becoming practical if you've like, because like one ASIC, non-wholesale prices would probably run you like 300 US, and by the time you plug it in, like you really are probably pulling out maybe 1,000 Satoshis a day. Like it's not much if you only have one rig. And yeah, with payouts so small, you can't even get your hands on your payout. So I think Lightning will open up a market uh, along the lines of something that 21 Co was envisaging all of that time back, where like toasters are mining and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So what's a toaster going to pull down in terms of hashes? But you might still get 0.003 of a Satoshi out of your toaster. And, penny upon penny make many.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea. I don't know if it's actually going to be economically or viable in the future, but I had this conversation. I think it was Jan Pritzker from Inventing Bitcoin. And we were just, if you look around your house and you look for waste energy, it's not that hard to find some. Now, it might not be in large, or especially heat energy. It might not be in large quantities, but like it's around. And if as you're saying, the Lightning Network makes it economically viable to actually somehow capture and use that, then it's I'm a advocate slash hopeful slash interested in kind of the being self sufficient, and so in your home having almost everything you need to survive, right? And so we're seeing that now with Bitcoin and what that provides in terms of being financially independent, and then having your own source of energy in your home, growing your own food, having source of medicine, like all these different things happening directly in the home. Kind of anti-globalization, really. Not for that purpose, but just for independence, for sovereignty, for convenience. And it'll be interesting if integrated into that vision is energy capture and mining Bitcoin. That would be rad.
Yeah, like I said, energy is everything. You sort the energy out, and you've sorted out 90% of the problem. And when we say Bitcoin fixes this, we're also saying energy fixes this. So the more energy we use, the better. We just got to make sure it's clean, and we got to figure out better ways on how to capture and store it ourselves.
Right. And what drew you to coming at things in Bitcoin from this angle? Like why was this the thing that kind of captured your attention and imagination?
Uh, Pretty simple, really. So here's a one-liner for you. So when it comes to engineering the digital world, I wouldn't know shit from shoe polish. But when it comes to engineering the physical world, I rate myself quite highly. So my background's in civil engineering and infrastructure mega projects.
Okay.
So and doing environmental impact assessments on huge scale infrastructure and mine projects and all of that. It's what I know, and it's what I could offer the community. So I just dove right in.
And what about Bitcoin, you know, when did you get red pilled, and what about it caused you to, cause you to get red pilled? Like what captured your attention with it in the first place?
So I've always been like an infrastructure man. I remember in your talk with Gigi, you talked about sacrifice. I've always been someone that believes in sacrifice.
Right.
I had to pick my career at a very young age, so I had to basically make a call on my career at 15, and the call I made was civil engineering, simply because we're like the Night's Watch of civilization. We're responsible for engineering, the stuff that keeps civilization ticking, roads, water, yada 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 yada.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Having done a couple of really big public infrastructure mega projects, I then was fortunate enough to do a public-private partnership, so a toll road. And I quickly found that when you need big money to build a big infrastructure project, you've got to go hat in hand to some really, really bad people. And they definitely do not have the public interest at heart with this bit of infrastructure. And I was red pilled on the evils of finance. I did a bit of self study as well. I did level 1 of the CFA, and in that I learned all about the reserve banking system. So as an engineering student, we don't really do much economics. We do the pretty basic, straightforward stuff. So as soon as I figured out the fractional reserve system and did some research, that's when I knew it was all a scam. Unluckily for me, that was in 2008. So I never really looked into it again.
Right.
About 5 years later, though, so I was doing my MBA over in Oxford, and it was mentioned in passing to me in April of 2013 after the crash from 250. And I asked my friend, tell me more about it. He's like, oh, I don't know. Like he tried to explain it to me, couldn't. Let it fall by the wayside. Didn't look into it until later that summer. Again, term past came by in passing. I looked into it, read the white paper. At the end of the abstract, I was sold, ready to go all in. In fact, but being a student in England, I didn't have access to the banking system and all that kind of stuff. So I had to wait to go back to Australia in October. So go back to Australia October. As you know, that's when the run started going, and I basically didn't get into the top of the 2013 bubble and watched it crashed all the way down. And one of the big pieces of FUD, on the crash on the way down, was the environmental impact. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna defend this thing that, although has caused some short-term financial ruin, it's I'm really gonna work on this, push it, because it's the only piece of infrastructure worth building. So I've transitioned from physical infrastructure uh, into digital infrastructure.
And were you shaken out? Did you doubt yourself at all during the bear market of 14,
Oh,
15,
like
16?
what's it called? In my talks with Gigi, there was a lot of sort of Game of Thrones illusions. I considered that the getting stabbed and dying and being resurrected. So as far as I was concerned, those bitcoins were bought, and I will die holding them, even if they're worth nothing.
Right.
My regret is when it was in the dumpsters for a good year or so at the $300 mark. I wasn't brave enough to octuple down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I doubled down at 800, at 600, at 500, at 400, and then I'm like, I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Every time I'm buying, it's just dropping another 10, 20%. So I do regret not having stronger resolve, but my resolve was strong enough. But look, for a newbie in his first bear market and witnessing things like Mount Gox and all of that kind of stuff,
Oh yeah.
to us it was a very realistic chance this thing would go to zero. So like at that time, I hadn't met people, fiercely religious about it, like I was. Like for me, when I look at the price of Bitcoin, I'm not really worried about like my bank balance, because spiritually, I see Bitcoin as a charity. Really, I see it as the second charity in history. Whereas where you donate money, you'll enrich yourself. So like, what does Bitcoin as a charity do? So let's take Greenpeace, for example. They're out, saving the whales. If you want to donate money to save the whales, find your way to Greenpeace. Red Cross to humanitarian aid. If you feel like giving your money to humanitarian aid, you go to the Red Cross. How about people that think, hard money is going to fix the world? Who do they donate to? Easy. You stack sats. That's a donation. Uh, the more stats you stack, the more people stacking sats alongside you, the hard price floor of Bitcoin rises. As the hard floor rises, you have price stability. As you have price stability, you can get the unbanked on the system in a circular economy, and so on and so on and so on. So when I see the price of Bitcoin dropping, I take it to heart, uh, in that good righteous money is losing against evil money. So, for example, right now in the whole world, I believe there is $150 billion of clean, righteous money, and everything else is evil money. And when the price of Bitcoin rises, for me, it's good overcoming that little bit of evil.
Right. And you said that Bitcoin is the second charity that is a donation to yourself.
Yeah,
What or enriches yourself? What's the first one?
the Clinton Foundation.
Okay, explain that a bit.
I won't go into it, but the people that are inclined in my political direction will probably get it. It's
No.
a play on pay for play. So you donate to the foundation and you usually get some pretty big contracts out of it.
Right. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people that are in Bitcoin share a lot of the sentiment that you just said. That this is the cleanest, purest money, most truthful money that has ever existed. And it's wild that it's only, there's only 150 billion of it when you consider just the magnitude of the rest of the money that's out there. Do you think, in terms of how this plays out, I mean, how do you see it replacing, the shit money that's pervasive throughout the world today? Does it just keep trucking along like this? Because lately there's a lot of talk about, once it gets big enough to catch the awareness of, policymakers, politicians, state actors, etc., then the oppression on it, the restrictions, the regulation could be fairly onerous. Not on the network itself, maybe, although that's a possibility, but on the individuals who engage in it. What's your take on that?
So, just like with anything, in the world, and let's come back to religion here as well, and just ideology in general. Uh, you have to win hearts and minds.
Right.
It's very important. And I think anyone with a curious, intellectually honest mind has already been won. And they're the hodlers of last resort. But I think to get the masses on, their minds are receptive, but they're much harder to win than their hearts. And I think things like the Little Bitcoin book will help win the battle for hearts. So, if I imagine, your typical well-meaning social justice warrior, if they pick up a book like the Little Bitcoin book, I almost promise you they'll transition from social justice warrior to economic justice warrior overnight, and they'll see that most of these social problems that they're fighting for, it all stems from lack of hard money.
Right.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And when you can explain the human side, struggles in places like Philippines, Nigeria, Eastern Europe, South America, I think that's a very huge part in the war of, like it sounds like crap, but like to say, spread this ideology, spread this idea that it is hard money that we need to take our civilization to the next step.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is because at first or a lot of us get so excited about this, and I talked about this with Gigi too, actually. But then you develop a zen. You go out and you try to tell your best friends and your family, and you may come off a bit like a lunatic or some variation thereof, and then you say, okay, maybe that approach isn't the best way to do it. And I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to let the benefits that accrue be reflected in me, and I'm going to become increasingly zen about, my Bitcoin zealotry, let's say. And I get that, and I oscillate back and forth between thinking, okay, just do that, manage your shit, and let the game play out the way it does. But I also think, well, I don't know. Will that be enough, as you said, to win the hearts and minds if everybody's just quietly doing their thing? And so the other side of the coin that I think of is, maybe you don't have to be so forceful, pushy, and feel, exclaim that you just discovered a new god, as it were. But I'm starting to think that maybe we should be, one, showing our enthusiasm at least more. Like there's not that many people in the space that actually are speakers. You've got Andreas, of course, and I mean, I can't really think of many others, but I think it would be good. There's so many different perspectives in the community. There's so many different perspectives and methods of communicating that resonate with a broad variety of different people. One effective way of communicating for one person will be different from the other, will be different from the other and the other. And so as this community collects more and more different people coming from different situations, speaking in different ways, I think if we could all just, obviously we have to try to be articulate, reasonable, logical, genuine, truthful to ourselves. But if we can start kind of articulating our enthusiasm about this phenomenon, I think that might be a way to generate intrigue and to start to win the hearts and minds of people.
And you've got to, like, it's a soft skill. You got to learn how to tap into somebody's heart in particular.
Right.
So everyone has interests. Everyone has particular frustrations, and I am such a zealot fundamentalist that I can tie back any frustration to Bitcoin fixes this.
Right. Yeah, that's
I
that
pull on some heartstrings, I pull on some my mind strings, I pull out dcabtc.com and I just show them the record, especially for ones that I planted seeds a couple of years ago. So I was hanging out with my friend James Saturday evening, and I probably mentioned Bitcoin to him 4 years ago. Uh, so we were talking, and Bit came back on the topic. Bitcoin came back on topic, and we were talking about it a little. And I'm like, have a look at this website. So I told him to pull up DCA BTC, and I said, all right, how long ago did I tell you about Bitcoin? So we put back, 4 years, and we said, let's say we put, $10 a week. He would have had a lot of money. So pretty much within a minute of that chat, he's like, that's it. I'm taking the plunge. Got him signed up to Amber, and yeah, he's got a weekly recurring buy going now.
right.
So just these little plant little seeds everywhere, and if you can't uh, pull heartstrings or mind strings, pull wallet strings and just show them dcabtc.com.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people that is probably the first kind of road into this thing, and then once they get in and they realize that they've made some money, then they tend to their ears perk up, they tend to investigate more, and then they start on the path of the rabbit hole, as we all do, and you go down that never-ending trail. But one of the things you mentioned, you were talking about social justice warriors, and obviously, today, I mean, we've got a recent news event in Greta Thunberg, right, and the phenomenon of Greta and all the climate marches happening all over the world as a result of her activism. And I just, as you said, it all leads back to the monetary medium on which society is based. And I wish that more of that energy, because, I think most of those people are well-meaning. So I don't criticize them for having, the wrong intention. But
And look, she did hit a very good point on the head. So one of the things she said is your delusions of infinite economic growth. She's hit it on the head. I think if she investigates that statement and meditates on it, she'll see that that's the only statement worth following.
mm-hmm.
The delusional infinite economic growth and money printing,
Yeah.
because that's the central problem. It's fix easy money, and all of this, growth for the sake of growth is just uh, it doesn't become possible anymore. It's out of the government's hands. It's just in the market's hands.
Right. And that's my point. They fail to investigate it far enough to understand true causes, and I think everyone just gets so wrapped up in emotions and tribalism and virtue signaling and wanting to be a part of something that seems good and genuine and true, and they all go march, on a Friday afternoon, and it's this big thing, gets lots of media attention, but does it change anything? And the other thing that frustrates me is not just that there's a lack of kind of education and investigation to really try to understand the very cause that you're protesting against, but also the kind of abdication of responsibility for your role in the very thing that you're protesting. So for example, everyone, Greta's shtick and everybody's shtick is, the government has to do more. We have to hold our leaders accountable. It's like, what do you expect the leaders to do? Like, what is actually the change you're seeking here? Because okay, well, we want the leaders to place, harsher regulations on the people that are emitting or causing environmental degradation or pollution. And what does that practically mean? Well, they're going to put regulations on them. All of those companies that do that stuff ultimately exist to provide you with products and services. So it means that the products and services that you use, the price is going to go up, or you're going to be restricted from using them. In both cases, it's behavior change that you could actually do right now without the government forcing your hand or the hand of the people providing you products and services. So that's the thing that really gets me about all this is like, not only investigate root causes, but investigate your life and in which albeit small ways, but obviously, at scale, these small behaviors have big impacts, how you might be contributing to the problems that you think, to these problems that you're the cause for your protest, your involvement in these protests. And I think if everybody did, and I think the reason why people have that approach is because there's just and Bitcoin is a big part of putting up a mirror to this stuff, but it's such an abdication of responsibility. It's such a nanny state mentality where we always just, if there's an issue, we ask our overlords to take care of it. We ask the government to do it for us. And we don't realize that all they can do is restrict our behavior and further. So it's frustrating, but again, what gives me greater hope than anything is Bitcoin's existence and its propensity to draw people in and to get people to see the light on this. And in my conversations on this podcast and many others that haven't been recorded, people that get involved in this space slowly but surely begin to gain further clarity on that. They begin to see whether it's time preference behavior, and that's another perfect example. I mean, the time preference thing is mostly based, I would say, in us wanting to stack sats rather than buy a new pair of jeans. But another impact that it has is lowering our consumption of goods and reducing our waste and reducing our support of industries and products and services companies that might be having a negative impact on the environment. Whatever you think about the validity of the climate discussion, I mean, I'm not here to pass judgment on that, but there's pollution and waste and environmental degradation is something that's definitely happening. And the kind of the greed is good narrative of wanting to lower your time preference in order to stack sats instead of consume is also actually probably extremely beneficial for the environment. So the more people we can get to have that mentality, then probably the better, the less negative impact it'll have on the environment.
Preaching to the choir, couldn't agree more. So I'm a huge environmentalist, and if you're a legit environmentalist, the little thing you can do is stack sats.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. As soon as Bitcoin really takes off, and starts overtaking markets and markets being priced in Bitcoin and all of that kind of stuff, you'll find that companies and governments will find it extremely hard to consume and pollute as much as they do now. Almost a guarantee.
Yeah, definitely. And so, does your faith in this thing, again, to borrow the religious terminology, does your faith in this thing allow you to see kind of these big global movements where people are protesting and, basically, I think, taking the wrong approach in order to find solutions to these problems? Are you zen about it? You're like, Bitcoin will fix this in due time? Or do you think it has to be a more active approach to education and to communicating to try to get people to see that a different approach would be more effective in accomplishing their goals?
We've got a bit of a dark answer on this one.
Go for it.
So as part of my zen and as part of my religion, I see a judgment day and a rapture. I think the things like the protests and the social stuff will get worse, far worse before they get better. So a lot of people talk about economic crashes and stuff and think about the share prices and whatnot, but there'll be significant human costs associated with that, and those that have been stacking sats for their salvation will get raptured and enjoy a better hereafter than those who did not. But I do see problems, unfortunately, getting worse before they get better, and that's just the perspective of somebody that hit puberty and went through adolescence in the Middle East. So spent all my life in the West, barring 4 or 5 years of puberty and adolescence where worldviews were kind of formed. And if economies crash, you're going to be in for a bad time. So, that's why I'm a proselytizing zealot. I want the people who I love to be saved as well.
Yeah.
So that's a big driver for me, like not getting in people's faces. Like so many of, like, for example, my cousins I told about Bitcoin in 2013 laughed, and like there was mockery like in the 200s and 300s.
Right.
But when they had kids, I gave their kids sats. I don't want their kids to be broke because of their broke ass parents.
Right. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and this is, this is how I started my journey because, in 2006, 7, I, came out of high school, started to look at the world and try to understand what the fuck was going on. And, not that you can never have an objective clarity or perspective, but you do try to take in all the different information and then form your own conclusions. And my conclusion was, things are fucked, and it doesn't seem like there's a way out of this. And then, you adapt, you find a silver lining, you try to make life the best you can anyways. And then Bitcoin comes along, and you realize more and more that well, as you were saying, it provides a potential, the best potential we have for salvation or for avoiding that catastrophic sort of future.
And
But
look, it will be catastrophic. So let me give you an example.
yeah, that's what I was leading to. I wanted you to kind of tell me how you think it plays out.
So '08 was like kind of catastrophic, uh, but like no one had to like die. So, for example, if you hear the experts on what they think about the upcoming crashes, the big ones that could possibly take down the euro and the dollar and the like, you think there won't be big major famines in places like Africa and Asia?
Hmm.
So like back in the Great Depression, the really, really, really bad one, there was probably a billion mouths to feed on Earth. So look, this thing is going to get bad, and no one should be praying, for economic devastation, even though that, will likely increase, the value of the Sats. But I do have a pessimistic view of what will happen, as a result of, global liquidity effectively drying up.
And do you think that no matter how much education is done to turn around, the people that are protesting and their reliance on the government, no matter how much we might kind of the virus spreads to people in the legacy system and they start to put more and more money and value into this thing, do you just think it's too far gone for it not to meet that kind of an end?
I think it's just human nature to not make a call on these kinds of things until you're at absolute breaking point, and then
Right.
you look for easy radical solutions. Hitler is a perfect example of the radical solution that the Germans were looking for after the Depression. So they hit breaking point, and they're like, we need a fix. Whoever's promising a fix, let's hop on it. So I think a lot of people have to get to that point before they're ready to take Bitcoin as that option.
Yeah.
And hopefully that option gets apparent to them before they take the easy way out with a two-bit dictator.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that frightens and frustrates me today is that, back to the climate example, is that, all these people are so motivated and passionate and emotional about, joining this cause and going out on the streets and protesting, and then the politicians are only too happy to say, sure, what do you want us to do? We'll do it. Just, keep voting for us. And then, it's like you said, it's the easiest, most obvious, extreme solution. It's not the solution. And you could say the same maybe on the gun debate. You could say the same with healthcare. People don't want to hear, well, you're going to have to change your life. You're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to eat differently. And you're going to have to do this. Or back to the climate thing. You're going to have to not drive your car to work. You're going to have to, wear less clothes because of the pollution that required for cotton farming and all that kind of stuff. They want the radical, super easy solution. And the problem with the political structure today is that it's willing and able to say, sure, we'll take care of it for you. And what does "we'll take care of it for you" mean? It means we'll take more power you're delegating your responsibility to us, and in doing so, you're delegating your power to us. So sure, we'll take it and we'll do something with it. And then if there ever comes a time where they're doing something that you don't like, you can't do anything. So
Exactly right.
it's that's maybe it's a foregone conclusion that there has to be catastrophe, and objectively I would agree with you, but I can't allow myself not to try to act in a way that might make that wrong, act in a way that might turn that around, so I'm at the very beginning of this for me personally, but I want to try to find ways of communicating with people that there are other ways of going about things that will result in a better outcome ultimately, but that may require shouldering greater responsibility and greater inconvenience and greater hardship in the short term. And I guess it comes down to that thing, like, what do people really want? Do they want convenience and comfort, or do they want freedom and responsibility? And I mean, if we look out on the world today, most people have chosen the former. And, I think a lot of Bitcoiners have chosen the latter. And that goes back to my original question. Do we just lead by example and just quietly go about our shit? Or do we try to articulate this in the best way that we can for whatever audience cares to listen to us, to try to accelerate the transition to more people thinking that way, so as to possibly avoid a more catastrophic future outcome?
The beauty of Bitcoin is that there is no we. So it's you do what you feel you want to and need to do.
Right.
There'll be people out on the front lines proselytizing with terrible OPSEC. To get the message out, and there'll be people, keeping their stuff to themselves. But this isn't about getting rich. This is about a revolution, and some people are just going to have to sit down and take a stand. The revolution starts with someone. Yeah. Someone's got to get a move. And there are a lot of revolutionaries on the front line, and it's not an exaggeration to say that these people are willing to die for Bitcoin.
That's intense.
In terms of like the success of the network, not willing to die to protect their stash.
Yeah. It's a funny thing, man. I mean, I wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago, when I was having those, looking out on the world, trying to understand it all, that this is where we'd be in 10 years. We'd have this thing. And I talked about this with many people, Gigi also being one of them. But, it's, I think, for a generation that, for many reasons, some real, some imagined, so back to this climate stuff and, back to just the general outlook that a lot of people in the quote unquote millennial generation or thereabouts feel. I feel like there was is also still a pretty pervasive hopelessness, because of, what they understood to be reality when they looked out on the world. And Bitcoin has entered the scene, and the more you investigate it, the more you try to understand it, the more you engage in it, the more you begin to see that it provides a, kind of a beacon of hope, and it materially changes how you interact with the world, even in the most subtle ways, again, maybe I've said this too often, but to be able to wake up in the morning and be excited is probably one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, or one of the greatest circumstances or situations that anybody can have, because it means you have more energy and enthusiasm and happiness in the day, and that affects all your interactions with all the people you're with, and it affects your desire to be creative and innovative and thoughtful in all the things that you do in your work and all that kind of stuff. And I think Bitcoin is very clearly, because a lot of people are articulating this now, having that effect. So I mean, who knows how fast it could accelerate. I guess what I'm hoping is that more and more people see this, and it just not by any intentional expectation on their behalf, but it just kind of starts happening that way, that hope kind of permeates their mindset, and it starts having all those beneficial effects.
I think a lot of the hopelessness comes simply because they can't see that light in the dark just yet.
Right.
So I used to be very hopeless as well. Not hopeless, but I knew the challenges that lay ahead of me were going to be very great. And due to my mindset and just how I feel about the world and about others, I knew I was should strap in for a difficult life.
Right.
Uh, Look, we all understand the exponential function. The younger you are, the less you have to unlearn, and you can rely on your instincts, and you can just look at broad trajectories of trends and where things are going. So you don't have to be a genius at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old to have a look at problems we have with things like just pollution, climate change, poverty, overpopulation, war, so on and so on and so forth. Uh, unless they can see something that will enable them to influence or impact this, I don't see where hope can come from.
Right.
But it's very easy to fix and implement these things on a personal level. Stack sats. Yeah, stack sats, and the issues will resolve themselves. And you get the double win of helping out, but also helping yourself out.
It's so simple.
It's the easiest thing in the universe. It's playing life with cheat codes.
Man.
Like, it's not rocket science. Just stack sats. A lot of if you want the price to be stable, you better put your nuts on the table. So if you care about this thing surviving and being stable, like, you gotta stack your sats, and you gotta do it consistently.
Yeah. All right. So speaking about this change in perspective, and Bitcoin being a source of hope and all of that, what's your day to day these days like? Are you full time in Bitcoin?
No, no, not at all. I wish I was. Maybe after the next bull, we'll see how we go. So I still work in the building game. I build residential towers. Yeah, my day to day is strictly connected to the physical world, and I get to cross the digital bridge when I come back home in the evenings.
Right. And so what do you see as your primary work in the extracurricular digital space right now?
Researching, collaborating, and yeah, researching and collaborating. Got some big collaborations coming up soon. I'll keep that. I'll keep those cards close to the chest, but be on the lookout for some good collaborations.
Nice. You bring up a point that I think it's a big X factor in everything we've been discussing, right? Because, as is so often stated, our minds kind of work in a linear fashion. It's very difficult for us to comprehend exponential change. And, maybe it's one bull run from now, maybe it's two bull runs from now, but, whichever one it is, I'm excited, and it's fun to imagine the kind of all the people that will come out of the woodworks and drop whether the career that is not serving them, that they don't derive that much meaning from, that they don't have real energy and enthusiasm for, and begin to devote their expertise and their resources to, this Bitcoin thing, and the how that will impact everything. I mean, that's one of the most exciting things for me about the next bull run. Like, forget the financial rewards. I'm more like, man, this is going to free up a lot of people just to be able to say, okay, I got enough cash now that I can, I don't have to depend on my 9 to 5, and I can, search within myself and figure out in which capacity I want to, devote myself and devote my effort to, to Bitcoin. And it's, I mean, I can't even imagine all the different ways that people are going to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Look, it's it definitely is a means of giving something back. So, but until then, there's there really is no shame uh, staying humble, stacking sats, and when the time's right, the time's right. So, for Satoshi, so loveth the patient, and patience is a huge thing in religion. Patience, sacrifice, uh, and that's basically it. Hard work, sacrifice, stack sats, be patient, and collect your rewards for the hereafter.
Yeah, it's such a, I mean, of course we could be wrong, but it's such a it feels like such a reliable form of faith, right? Like, whereas before, I think a lot of people have a difficulty in, well, as we were saying, having a faith and optimism for the future, and that very much affects your behavior and your attitude and the way you engage in the world now. Because, like, why should I save for the future if I think everything's going to be fucked? Or, why should I sacrifice for the next 5 years to build a business or to develop myself, personally, or to gain experience if I don't think it's going to, net me that much of a benefit? It's not going to get me anywhere in 5 years' time. But, with what you just said, with this beacon drawing everything forward, it's like, no, if, like, the sacrifice and the work and all of that kind of stuff that I make now, I mean, it's very clear to see how it could materialize in material benefit in the future. And that is another one of those things that just, it's a future outcome, or the perception of a future outcome that genuinely and in some cases drastically changes behavior today for the better. And again, that's another one of those things about Bitcoin that you're just like, fuck yeah.
And look, everyone's got to believe in something.
Right.
Uh, why not believe in something verifiable and unforgeable?
My friend the other day, because with some of my close friends, they jab me for, being so gung ho on Bitcoin, and, it's just fun. It doesn't bother me at all. And they're actually starting to, like, they make jokes about stacking sats, and now they're actually starting to do it. They're not fully red pilled, but they kind of think there might be something here. And, but one of them was just like, and, I love him to death. It's not a criticism, but one of them was just like, yeah, I'm not really so sure about Bitcoin. Seems kind of like a cult to me. And, I actually, it was via text, so I didn't have time to respond in the moment, but I was thinking to myself, yeah, but is that so bad? It depends on what the characteristics of the behavior of that cult are, right? If it's a fucking suicide cult, then yeah, it's probably bad. But if it's a cult that inspires, all these beneficial behaviors, then maybe it's a good thing.
Well, I'd prefer to call Bitcoin a decentralized religion, or with very broad and differing religious schools of thought. Let's put it that way. So you got your Sunday school people, and you got your fundamentalists, and everything in between, and everything. There's no central message. It's literally like Twitter. Every humble friar will have their followers. Uh, you can choose to follow whoever you want, and all that kind of stuff. And we all have different spiritual journeys. But as you were talking about, money being the motivator for all human action or something like that. You were saying something like that with Gigi
Yeah,
the other episode, and that even even religious people chase money.
sure.
Uh, I like to I like to uh, remove the word money and just replace it with rewards. So you can say Bitcoiners are chasing rewards for the hereafter, and the religious are also chasing rewards for whatever hereafter their religion ascribes to.
Right.
So like some people like in the religious sense you collect rewards by doing good deeds and all of that, and that'll secure you heaven and a good eternal afterlife, all that kind of stuff. In the Bitcoin world, stack sats, salvation, good hyper Bitcoinized hereafter.
And when you say hereafter, you just mean the future, right?
So not in the religious sense, the hereafter is what
Death.
happens after you die,
Right.
death. Whereas in the Bitcoin world, the hereafter is when a hyper Bitcoinized world, when the world is just Bitcoin.
Right.
So whoever's been stacking sats now, their hereafter is going to be like heaven. But the people that haven't been stacking sats, and especially for the no coiners, they're going to have a savage hereafter.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know if you're up for it, but just for fun, what do you see society, culture, the world, civilization as being like in a post hyper Bitcoinization world?
I think the population uh, will be far smaller due to the resulting hit that came from economic meltdown. And I say that like I was saying, famine, civil wars, instability. So populations will take a bit of a hit. So it'll be a smaller population. Uh, uh, just like how money makes the world go around now, and there's a huge industry around the world of finance. There'll be a huge energy industry around the world of Bitcoin. We'll probably have energy abundance, uh, and I effectively think it'll be quite utopic when all the dust is settled.
How are you preparing for this transition that you're seeing, other than stacking
Uh,
sats, of course? But
it's you gotta play it by ear. You can't fight nature. And that's why Bitcoin wins. Bitcoin is nature.
I mean,
So
like, if you're seeing such a dramatic, let's say, population decline, would you be someone who's preparing by, buying dried food, having a, place in, outside of city centers to live? Like, how does one prepare for such a drastic, tumultuous time?
yeah, look, I'm not 100% sure. I'm lucky enough to live in Australia, so we might not. We'll probably get early warning signs from the less stable patches around the world. Uh, but yeah, I haven't really thought too much about prep.
Mm-hmm.
For now, I'm thinking about like all of us should be thinking about just keeping ourselves alive, being patient, and stacking sats, and whatever will come will come.
Right. All right. Last question before, or second last before we get into the rapid fire stuff. But what, do you have any kind of vision for yourself over the next 2, 3 years? Right. Like as you met, people are interested in hearing about the work that you've done. You mentioned you were in Riga a few weeks ago. Like, what are you excited about doing in your world in the next couple of years? And I know you can't give away any of the collaborations that you're working on, but like what prior to the big change, let's say, should it come, what's most exciting to you?
Uh, I've actually been thinking about using my strengths, my personality strengths. I'd very much like to get into something like lobbying,
Interesting.
uh, because like I don't like dealing with government. I don't really trust them and I don't really like them. But I think in this particular situation, governments may be able to facilitate a softer landing
Right.
by just testing the waters, encouraging Bitcoin entrepreneurship, uh, favorable regulatory environment for miners, all that kind. Just get themselves ready for it. Not like the central bank stockpiling Bitcoin or something.
Right.
Just get their economies ready. Get their population used to the concept. There's a lot of ways that confident governments can introduce this to their populations. I don't see many people with many countries with insecure currencies taking such a stance. And I think in those places they can probably expect a much harder landing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, and it'll be interesting also to see if these sort of initiatives pop up, and to what degree the community. And I know it's just a collection of individuals, but we do share a lot of leanings and philosophies. But to what degree, the community would be willing to fund certain efforts. Like if somebody said that as you just described, that's going to be the type of work that they want to do. Would the community be willing to fund that to the tune of, a couple $100,000, couple $1 million? Like I'm really excited as this grows and grows, and perhaps we're not at that level yet, but one example, and I think I talked about this with Gigi too, was the Pineapple Fund and Mr. Pine, and how he came into a bunch of money as a result of being an early investor in Bitcoin, and donated it to a bunch of different charities and MAPS, of which an organization that I'm follow very closely, was the biggest recipient. I think he gave them $8 million ultimately, and just things like that where maybe it just accelerates this change into I'm hesitant to use the word utopia, but just like, let's say, a much better world whereby people with means and altruism are able to more effectively support the causes that they think are important, whether that be for profit or not.
No, no, I definitely agree with that. So that brings me to a sort of another point on wealth distribution and the concept of noblesse obligée, which is a French term, means the obligations of the nobility, or nobility rather. And like some good examples of that in America were like the Rockefeller family opening up libraries and hospitals and all that. So you should expect the whales to do some heavy lifting, but you can't force anyone to do anything.
Right.
So I'd naturally expect some really enthusiastic, maybe little dolphins that have cashed out enough to be able to live somewhere with a passive stream of income covering all their expenses, just doing that, working full time on Bitcoin and getting on with it, not going to ask anyone for money.
Yeah.
But that just takes time, patience, and cycles. And the more patient you are and the harder you stack, the earlier you can get to that position of freedom to just follow passion projects.
Man, it's exciting talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm always excited when the conversation goes this way, or really any conversation about Bitcoin, which is why I do this. But uh, going back to the very beginning of this discussion, one thing I wanted to ask you was, and I mean, I know it may be overkill and there may be no simple answer, but when the environmental question comes up, in conversation, in media, whatever these days, from your perspective, basically I'm looking for like, what's a good like one-liner or a short explanation of why the environmental concerns about Bitcoin that like a no coiner, pre-coiner might have are misplaced, and how to kind of, satisfy those fears, in conversation with them. What would you or do you say?
I don't have a one-liner, but I've got like a little three-liner.
Okay.
So the first line is it's not the energy that counts, it's the emissions.
Right.
So that's the first one. And because Bitcoin is tied effectively to the grid, when the grid is clean, Bitcoin's going to be clean. Doesn't matter how much energy it uses. Second one is would you trust money that hasn't been backed by work? So like you can trust gold because someone's worked their ass off to pull it out of the ground. Same thing as Bitcoin. Some computers have worked their ass off and paid about, $7,000 worth of electricity for something that's worth $8,000. Uh, so could you then trust paper that no work went into to generate? So I, kind of show, energy as the necessary evil. Like you can't trust something that hasn't been backed by work. If you want your work to maintain its value over time, the work and labor you put in to earn this money, how can you even accept to hold this money, this work, if it isn't backed by other work? So it is what it is. It's easier to explain to people that have a good grasp of algebra, but it also requires an element of Zen. So here's the algebra aspect of it. Energy equal uh, uh, work equal Bitcoin equal life equal nature, and it's all energy. So by the transitive property of algebra, Bitcoin is life, Bitcoin is nature, Bitcoin is energy, and any analogies or anything you can read out of that, anything you can read out of nature, it all applies back to Bitcoin.
So, do you think the the total value of the money supply globally that we use should be represented in energy? That was put the wrong way, but do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, should, because
Yeah.
right now we have a
Yes.
money supply that's just, it's not based in energy, but should not the money that we use have a direct foundation in and cost in the amount of energy that went into producing it?
Yes, absolutely. Hence why Bitcoin is the monetization of energy.
Right, right.
So you put energy into the Bitcoin network and out comes money
So when people say Bitcoin uses too much energy, one of the answers that
because it
obviously,
has to.
right, right, but one of the answers that they're not going to like is, and it should be using way, way, way more because we
Yeah.
want we want the amount of energy Bitcoin uses to essentially ultimately reflect all of the money that we use to transact in the world, right?
Yeah,
So
and
the
I
value
and
of all the money in the world should be the amount of energy that we're using.
yeah, that's effectively it. That's basically it. So a lot of people say like, yeah, the first trillionaire is, going to be like, Satoshi or someone like something like that. No, I reckon the first person that figures out how to put like a, a nuclear power plant in a shoebox, there's your first trillionaire.
Right. Interesting.
I reckon.
Yeah, totally possible. Before we get going on the rapid fire, is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
No, no, I think that's it. Let's
Uh,
let's roll up the sleeves and get the rapid fire.
All right, let's do it. So, first question: what is money?
Money is energy, and money is Bitcoin. Plain and simple. I'm sure there's Austrian economists that'll give you like a two-page or like a 10-minute spiel on what money is and ethics of money. Blah 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 blah. For me, money is energy.
If you had to explain Bitcoin to your grandmother or an elderly person, what would you say?
Bitcoin is the chance to permanently stamp your legacy on the world and on your family.
What is the primary reason why Bitcoin is important or interesting to you?
Bitcoin fixes everything.
What does the sovereign individual, quote unquote, sovereign individual mean to you?
Uh, Somebody that has managed to free their mind and has sovereignty in their mind. Somebody that takes responsibility for their own actions. Sovereignty really is a state of mind, simply because governments in particular make it so difficult to be sovereign. Like in Australia, it's illegal to be sovereign.
That's crazy. I think that's the case in a lot of places.
That's the case like everywhere,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. How long after you first heard of Bitcoin did you start learning more and purchase it, if you're comfortable saying?
Instantly. So right away. So the learning immediately, uh, simply because I couldn't purchase immediately. If the listeners will listen to the further discussion, you get the wrap up in there.
Yeah. What has been your most effective method of educating people about Bitcoin in conversation or more formally?
So my pitch depends on the crowd, really. So it's a broad answer. A lot of the times, I try to pull on the heartstrings at first. That works a lot of the times. But as soon as I pull on the wallet strings and show them the price and tell them about the safety of DCA, they usually either on board or the seed has been planted to harvest, a cycle down the line.
What movie or song is most related to Bitcoin in your opinion?
Geez, Bitcoin as an industry or how I feel about Bitcoin?
How you feel about Bitcoin?
I'd probably say "Love of My Life" by Queen.
Nice. Uh, Favorite movie clip or rant of all time, if you have one?
Uh, Probably John Goodman in The Big Lebowski. Am I the only one that gives a fuck about the rules around here? That's I love that one.
Can Bitcoin be stopped? If so, what is Bitcoin's biggest vulnerability? If not, why not?
No, cannot be stopped. It's too late.
What was your most recent aha or level up in your understanding of Bitcoin?
Oh, hanging out with Gigi and Riga. We made beautiful music together. It was a great time.
Any specifics?
Uh, that's a part of the collaboration.
Okay, okay. We'll have to wait for that one.
Yeah.
What do you think will be Bitcoin's biggest impact on society?
Uh, Creating a normal distribution for wealth distribution. So bringing back the bell curve. And I think wealth will be distributed uh, like a bell curve within, I don't know, maybe 150 to 200 years. So sounds like a long time, but by that stage you'll have three standard deviations from the mean, extremely wealthy, three standard deviations back on the other side, extremely poor. The big deviations help each other out, and there's a great middle class in the middle of the bell. And I see Bitcoin delivering that to the planet. Because once Bitcoin's spent, it's spent forever, and there's no reprint. So it'll necessarily go to that. And Bitcoin being nature follows natural laws.
Right. So, not an advocate of everybody has to be the same and everybody has to have the same, and it's an injustice if everybody's not the same.
Does not occur in nature, hence does not occur in Bitcoin.
Yep. When, if ever, do you think the first central bank will start adding Bitcoin to the reserves, and will they exist in 20 years?
Never. They'll fail before they drop their ego and get some Bitcoin, I think.
What is the biggest mistake you've made with Bitcoin?
Not buying enough or much in the 2015, 2016 bear markets after buying the top in 2013.
How do you feel about Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator, being anonymous and the coins that he likely controls?
Absolutely essential that he stays anonymous. Back to my religious view, if he wasn't anonymous, he would have been crucified.
What happens if he comes out, in your mind?
He'll be crucified. Not literally,
Sure,
but
sure.
definitely figuratively. And you know what? Probably actually literally people trying to torture him for his coins.
Right. What have you learned about yourself, or how have you changed, if at all, as a result of learning about and interacting with Bitcoin?
Everything I know about my life is because I held up the mirror to Bitcoin. All of my darkest, deepest desires, anxieties. It's I think once you really fall down that rabbit hole, you really see who you are as a person, what your morals are, what your ethics are. Whether or not you're a hypocrite. you face Bitcoin honestly, and it'll reflect that brutal honesty straight back at you.
The great mirror of truth.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Will you ever sell the bulk of your Bitcoin?
Uh, uh, like, what do you mean by bulk?
Yeah, I mean, before I used to say, I think I might nix this question, but basically the original question was, at what price would you sell over 75% of your Bitcoin without
Oh, never.
a necessity to do
Uh,
so?
no, no, never. Like, I might sell, like, I don't know,
Little,
enough so that I could like live humbly but work full time on Bitcoin, and
right.
then the rest will be a hold
Yeah.
during my humble grind.
Yeah.
Like the money isn't the main thing, so that's why like I don't really care to sell them. But what's the point of money if not spending it on your health or something like that? I'd bite the bullet and sell some just so I could go and focus on Bitcoin full time without have to worry about a 9 to 5.
Love it.
So in terms of bulk, never.
Have you ever purchased other coins? If so, are you likely to do so again in the future?
Yeah, I picked up a couple of shit coins during the mania. So I have an uncle who told me, "Hey, I need you to get me these cryptocurrencies," and I'd never heard of any of them. But I knew there was mania abounds. I'd seen what mania was, and I just wish I'd kept my finger on the stove a little longer. But I got out. I got out way too early, but still made myself some Bitcoin. But I have lost money trading.
So,
I shorted Bitcoin Cash, and then Coinbase did their insider trading thing, and I got liquidated. But I consider that was one for the cause. I think that garbage needed to be shorted.
yeah.
Not enough people did. It was one of those Leroy Jenkins moments. I thought, let's short this baby, and I was the only one that went in.
It's kind of, I mean, I try not to be
I
too.
think it was incumbent on the Bitcoin community to short that thing around.
I try not to be too negative, in any capacity really, but I mean, I obviously, I see a lot of Rogers stuff on Twitter, and I can't. It's hard for me to imagine that it's still like somehow the narrative is still holding up, but I guess it is for some.
There's big egos and deep pockets.
Yeah. What is your most controversial or contrarian view or opinion? If nothing on Bitcoin, any subject is okay.
I gave some contrarian, pessimistic views in the further listening, but I'll say it now is I think there'll be a lot more darkness before the dawn, and I actually think if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, humanity doesn't.
Oof.
So
That's
a
a
lot of so a lot of so a lot of people ask me is like how can you be so sure that Bitcoin's going to succeed? And I say it will because it must.
yeah. That's heavy, but
And
I'm
that's
inclined
and
to
that's
agree.
basically it is what it is. It will succeed because it must. Because if it doesn't, how much longer can we really kick this can down the road?
Yeah.
10 years, 15,
Ballpark estimate of Bitcoin's price in 5 years.
100 grand.
Do you have a morning routine? If so, what is it?
No, I play it by ear every day as it comes. So I don't set an alarm. I leave my blinds open. So when the sun wakes me up, and it's usually like a 1 hour window that I wake up, make a coffee, and have a banana, have a shower, get dressed, and get on with my day.
Nice. How do you define success?
Uh, Success is a state of mind. So if you can find Zen in your life, if you can find happiness, for me that's success, and I'm saying that as a highly in quotations successful burnout. So true success is finding balance and happiness, or my opinion at least.
I agree. Most impactful book you've ever read?
Um, yeah, probably I'd say the little Bitcoin book. So gonna shill that one for Elena and the guys.
Nice.
Huge impact. Recommend everybody read it.
Where or who is your go-to place to learn more about Bitcoin?
Oh, Stefan Livera podcast or Stefan Livera in person. I'm very lucky. I get him in person all the time in Sydney.
Nice. What is the one most important action that myself or anyone listening can take to up our game in your area of expertise or interest? So anyone who wants to improve, what's the best way that you know how to do so at this time, vis-a-vis engaging with Bitcoin? Or not, actually.
Uh, Stay humble, stack sats. Like seriously, it doesn't get easier than that. You don't even have to learn anything. So for me, I'm happy not learning anything new about Bitcoin ever again. And I don't need to know that my salvation will be earned through stacking sats.
What is one question that you'd like to see added to this list, if
Um,
any?
yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. All right. Last part, word association. I'll say out a word.
Okay.
You tell me the first thing that pops into your head. You good to go?
Okay. Yeah, good to go.
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Savior,
Government.
corrupt,
Hash rate.
big,
The individual.
free,
Security.
Trezor,
Ego.
mania,
Greed.
good,
Stacking sats.
day,
Fiat currency.
rubbish,
Guns.
good,
Altcoins.
shit,
Pizza.
French fries,
Socialism.
yuck, doesn't work,
Family.
the best,
Trump.
huge,
Future.
music,
Libra.
tampons,
Gold. Gold.
bad,
And Bitcoin.
life.
Haas, man, I'm sure we could talk for several hours, but we'll have to wrap it up for this one and maybe look to do another one in 6 months or so because I feel like we could go down a lot of different trails and we'll give it 6 months for both of our respective journeys to unravel a bit and then maybe we'll hook back up and jam again.
Definitely, it's been a great time.
Well, look, man, I appreciate it. I wish you the best in your endeavors. And yeah, when that news comes of those collaborations, make sure you let me know. I'm eager to see.
Absolutely, will do.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye bye.